Hey everyone, and welcome to the start of another reading vlog. So I will do a proper introduction to this vlog tomorrow when I'm more awake, but there's less than an hour to go until the start of the 48-hour Bookoplathon, and I thought I would start this vlog by going through what I'm going to be reading first. Where have I put my book? The first two prompts for the readathon were to read a book that's under 300 pages and or to read a book that's to do with gods, and I think I found a book that can fit both of those prompts, and that is The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson. So this is a really short novella within the Cosmere. This is obviously not The Emperor's Soul. This is a very chunky collection of all of the short stories within the Cosmere. I don't know whether all of the short stories are in this collection, but this is a collection of short stories. The Emperor's Soul is one of those short stories, and that is going to be the first book that I pick up for this readathon. It's set within the same world as Elantris, which I read back in, I want to say February or March, but I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4.5 stars, and I'm excited to get back into that world. So I'm going to make a start on this at midnight during the first set of sprints, and my plan is to just keep reading until I fall asleep. And then wake up in the morning and continue this and hopefully finish it before the next roll drop, which is going to be at midday tomorrow. That's all I wanted to say anyway in this quick intro, but I will catch up with you once I've made some progress on this. I might actually just do an update once I've finished The Emperor's Soul, because I think it's literally like 120 something pages, so there's not going to be much that I can tell you about the plot anyway. Good morning and happy Saturday. So I have actually finished my first book for the readathon. I finished reading The Emperor's Soul this morning, and I think I'm going to give this 4 stars. I did really enjoy it. I think that considering that it's literally 120 pages, there was a lot that was crammed into the story. I don't want to give too much of a synopsis for this because it is so short, but it basically follows a woman called Shay who's a con artist and a thief, but she's also a forger, so she has this magical ability to be able to create replicas of things. There's a lot more to it than that, but she can basically create copies of various items, and at the start of the book she's in prison because she's been arrested and she's awaiting execution. However, the government give her this opportunity for redemption because they need someone with her unique skill to help them with a political problem. I feel like I'm being really vague, but like I said, I don't want to say too much about the plot because I didn't know anything about it going in other than it's set in the same world as Elantris, but I really struggled to see the connection between The Emperor's Soul and Elantris. I know that they're set in the same world, but in completely different parts. I don't know if I missed something, but I couldn't see how the two were related. I mean, it's a good thing because if you are looking for a short novella, then you can read The Emperor's Soul without having read Elantris. I actually think that if you've been curious about Brandon Sanderson's books, but you don't want to commit to one of his bigger novels, then I would recommend this because I think that it would be a good introduction to his writing style. What I really like about Brandon Sanderson books is the way that he writes magic systems and how everything makes sense and how it all feels very logical, and this was no exception. So yeah, 4 stars. It didn't quite give me that 5-star feeling, but I'm glad that I read it, and I'm glad that I've had success with the first book that I've read for this readathon, because I've been in a bit of a reading slump recently and I was a little nervous about Bookoplathon because of my reading slump. It feels like really bad timing because I've been looking forward to Bookoplathon since the announcement video. It was one of my favourite readathons that I took part in last year, and I didn't want to be in a reading slump, but I do feel like I'm slowly coming out of it, and I'm hoping that reading a lot of books within a short space space of time will motivate me. I don't know, we'll see how it goes, but the next prompts are being released in about half an hour at midday. I think I want to start an audiobook next because I've got a lot of chores and stuff that I need to get done today, and I need to pop out in a bit as well, so it would be good to have an audiobook that I can listen to and multitask. The two books that I have sort of on my radar are The Vegetarian by Han Kang and Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark, because I've double checked and they're both around 5-hour audiobooks, so I could easily finish them today if I listen on 1.5 or 2 times speed. I don't know which I'm more in the mood to read, so I'm just gonna wait until the prompts are released and then pick one that fits either or both of the prompts. Okay, so the next 2 prompts have just been released and they are to read an audiobook or an ebook, which is perfect because I think I said I wanted to read an audiobook next anyway, so that's worked out pretty well. However, the next prompt was to read a book that has a colour in the title, and the only book I can think of that I own that has a colour in the title is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, and I don't want to read it. It's a 700-page fantasy. I can't read that, not when I've been in a reading slump and when I'm trying to read books quickly. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go back to Scribd and just have a look and see if I can find something else that will fit that prompt. Every time I've tried to sit down and film an update for this vlog, there's been noises outside. At first there was a lawnmower and then there was an ice cream van, but hopefully that's all done now and I can get through this clip without any interruptions. But I have made a start on my next book for this readathon. I don't think I actually mentioned what book I was going to be picking up next, but I decided to go for The Vegetarian by Han Kang. I've got a copy of this book through my library. I can't actually remember where I first heard about this book, but it's translated fiction. It was originally published in Korean, and it's the kind of book that I think some people would describe as boring because there's not really much plot, but I'm finding it really, really interesting. It's basically about this married couple where the wife has decided to become a vegetarian and the husband doesn't really understand, and he has a lot of very strong opinions on vegetarianism, so it's quite uncomfortable to read because the first part of the book is told from his perspective and it's told in first person as well. So because I'm listening to the audiobook, I feel like I'm listening to a guy narrate his diary. I think because I am a vegetarian and I haven't eaten meat in 12 years, it's fascinating hearing from the perspective of someone who just doesn't get it and who's so against it. I wouldn't say that I'm enjoying it, but I am appreciating it. It's really hard to work out what side the author falls on, but I don't think that that's the purpose of the book. I think that this has been written in a very realistic way, where it's taken you inside the mind of this guy who has very, very strong opinions. I would recommend checking the trigger warnings if you are interested in this book, because there's quite a few, especially for abuse, including sexual abuse and animal abuse. I'm going to carry on reading it and then I'll probably give my final thoughts at the end of the vlog or whenever I finish reading it. I think I've got about 2 or 3 hours left on the audiobook, but I don't know when I'm going to have time to listen to it now until tomorrow. I am also going to make a start on another book this evening, and it's taken me a while to find a book that can fit the colour prompt that I'm in the mood to read, and I have actually managed to find a book. I've had to twist the prompt a little bit because I couldn't find a book that has a colour in the title, but I have found a book that has the word colour in the title, and that is Love in Colour by Bolu Babalola. I believe that this is a collection of short stories that are all inspired by Greek mythology and Nigerian folklore, and they're all romance stories. So it sounds like something that I would enjoy. It sounds like something that I'm in the mood for right now. So I'm excited to see what this is about. I'm pretty sure that this also won the Waterstones Book of the Year, either last year or the year before, or whichever year it came out. So yeah, really excited to start this tonight, and then I'll pick up another book based on the prompts at midnight. I should have said actually, I'm not going to try and read a book for every prompt. My goal is to fulfill all of the prompts, but I'm going to double up on as many prompts as I can.
I think I saw you driving on Wilshire, yeah. I wanna make you mine. 'Cause baby, in the city of angels.
So I was hoping to wake up early this morning so I could try and finish Love in Colour before the next roll drops at 12, but that didn't happen. I mean, I did actually wake up quite early, it's just that I was so tired that I wasn't really in the mood to start reading until about 10 o'clock, and it's now 11, so there's an hour to go until the final roll drops. I don't think I'm going to be able to read a book for every single prompt because I still need to finish The Vegetarian today. I'm also about 40% of the way through Love in Colour, and I don't want to rush my reading because I'm really enjoying it. The writing is beautiful, and sometimes I do struggle with writing that's more lyrical and that's quite descriptive, but I think it works in this book because they're short stories, so I feel like it's getting to the point a lot quicker. Sometimes when I read books that do have that very flowery writing style, I find them a little bit tedious, but I'm not finding that with this book. The thing about short stories is that within a collection, you always get a few that you don't enjoy as much as others, and then there's others that really stand out. I don't know how many I've read so far. I think there's over 20 short stories in total in this book. Some of the stories have more historical settings, and then others have modern day settings. They're all retellings of myths and folklore from around the world. I have preferred the more contemporary stories though so far. I would really recommend this though. I think if you're looking for a book that really delves deeply into relationships and romance, then this has been pretty good so far. I think that this author does have a full-length novel coming out this year, and I definitely want to read it because I do really like her writing style. I think on average it's taken me about 15 to 20 minutes to read each story, so it has been working quite well for a readathon. I think I want to try and break up the pace a little now though, and I'm going to try and pick up another book and finish it today. The prompts last night weren't what I wanted them to be because they were to read a book that has a spooky setting, no, to read a spooky book and to read a YA book, and I don't have any YA books that are on my radar at the moment that I was thinking about reading for this readathon. I do have a spooky book though that I could pick up next, and that's Sundial by Catriona Ward. I actually have an arc of this through NetGalley. It came out I think a few months ago. I really liked The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward when I read it last year. I have heard that this is quite different, but I'm hoping that it still has that spooky atmosphere, and I think it's quite short as well. I think it's around 300 pages, so I should be able to finish it by the end of the day, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to go for a walk now because it is beautiful weather today, so I'm going to go for a walk and listen to my audiobook this afternoon, hopefully finish that quite early, then make some more progress on Love in Colour, and then pick up Sundial this evening. I feel like I haven't really committed properly to this readathon because I'm taking it quite chill, but I'm enjoying myself so far. I do feel like even though I was in a reading slump, I am feeling motivated to keep on reading.
Bookoplathoon board roll number 4. 6. 6. Ooh, feed scroll.
Okay, so the next two prompts were to read a book with water on the cover and then feed scroll. So basically I'm gonna start screen recording on my phone, go onto Instagram, and then just keep scrolling until I come across a book that I own or that I have access to. I'm not gonna promise that I'm gonna read it because if Priory of the Orange Tree comes up, I am not gonna read that. Okay, so last time I did this for my TBR game, it took me a while to actually find a book that I own that I haven't already read, but if we keep scrolling, okay, so House of Sky and Breath I've already read. Don't own that. Don't own any of those. Don't own that. Do I own any of these? Nope, nope. Already read The Love Hypothesis. I do actually own both The Unhoneymooners and House in the Cerulean Sea, so I could read one of those. Okay, I think I'm going to double check how long House in the Cerulean Sea is because I actually have an arc of this and have just never got around to reading it, so I might pick up that next, and it actually has water on the cover as well, so that actually fits perfectly. So I finished listening to The Vegetarian while I was on my walk, and I'm going to warn you now, it's going to be really difficult for me to explain my feelings on this book because it's a really difficult book to describe anyway. The tone is very dark and it's very bleak, and honestly, I don't really know who I would recommend this to because I did enjoy it overall. I think I'm going to give it 4 stars, but there were certain aspects that I didn't really like. I think I've already said that this is about a young woman who decides to stop eating meat, and it's also about her rebelling against her family and how they're trying to force her into submission. The first part is told from the perspective of the woman's husband, and then part 2 is told from her brother-in-law's point of view, and then the third and final section is told from her sister's perspective. And I really enjoyed the beginning and I really enjoyed the end, but the part in the middle I just didn't really like. There was a lot of sexual content which I just didn't really enjoy reading about. I don't know whether it was because I was listening to the audiobook, but I just wasn't really interested, and I found that I was losing focus and my attention was just elsewhere. Part 1 and part 2 both follow really unlikable men, and that would probably be my main criticism, is that I would have liked to have heard more from the female characters within the story, but I also understand that the author's probably done that deliberately. I have really enjoyed looking at reviews for this book because I think it's the kind of book that you can interpret in different ways, and some reviews I have agreed with, and then there's other reviews that I wouldn't say I disagreed with, but I think I had a slightly different interpretation. So my interpretation of this book is that it's about how narrow-mindedness can make a person feel isolated and how that can have an effect and how that can impact on their mental health. I'm really struggling to decide how I'm going to rate this book because the first part to me felt like 5-star material, but then the second part was more like a 2 or 3 stars, and then the final part was probably more like a 3 or a 4, so I'm probably going to go for like a 3.5, maybe a 4 stars. I do think that it's a book that's going to stick with me and that I'm going to keep thinking about. My plan for the rest of the day is to focus on House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I think I mentioned earlier that I was also going to try and pick up Sundial by Catriona Ward, but I've changed my mind. I think that that's the kind of book that I'm going to want to read slowly, so I don't want to feel like I'm rushing it just for a readathon. And I could say the same actually about Love in Colour, because even though I'm enjoying those short stories, I think I would be enjoying them more if I were reading them more spread out. So yeah, my plan for the rest of this afternoon is to read The House in the Cerulean Sea, and I'm going to need all the luck in the world because I checked my Kindle earlier and it says that it's going to take me 6.5 hours or 5.5 hours to finish it, and I never know how accurate those Kindle predicted reading times are, but I need to get a move on because it's already 3:30, so there's what, like 6.5 hours left until midnight, and I really want to finish at least one more book for this readathon. So it is now just gone 7 o'clock and I am 30% of the way through House in the Cerulean Sea. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this before midnight. I'm going to give it a good go, but even if I don't finish it before midnight, then I'll finish it tomorrow morning and then I can wrap up my final thoughts in this vlog. But I realised that I never actually said what this book is about. The main character is a guy called Lioness who works for the government in the department that oversees magical children. So at the start of the book, he's assigned this new case where he has to go and investigate this orphanage that supposedly houses these really dangerous children, and he has to decide whether the orphanage can continue running or whether it needs to be closed down. I've heard people say before that this is basically middle grade for adults, and I am getting that feeling so far. It's very cute and very cozy and very wholesome. I think I've already worked out what direction this book is going to go in. I think it's going to be quite predictable, but as long as it's written well, then I don't think I'm going to mind it. Don't really know what to think of it so far. I don't have any strong feelings on any of the characters. Lioness is quite interesting because he's described as being very ordinary and very boring, Is that mean? He leads a very lonely life, and I think that this book is going to be about his character development. And I think one of the main themes in this book is going to be about how you can't judge people and that you shouldn't make assumptions about people before you've got to know them. I am going to take a little break now because I need to go and pick up my carvery that I've ordered. So there's this app called Too Good To Go where it's basically shops that are getting rid of food at the end of the day. So you can go on and order a magic bag and then pick it up, and it's a much cheaper price and it saves food being wasted. So I've ordered a magic bag from my local carvery, which I'm going to go and pick up for my dinner, and then I'm going to get back and read until midnight and hopefully finish The House in the Cerulean Sea. We know I'm not actually going to finish it. Like, I'm expecting to be finishing this tomorrow, but I'm going to give it a good go anyway because I do really enjoy reading as part of reading sprints. I really like that about Bookoplathon, that it's all about the community and it's about reading together. So yeah, I will update you once I am a little bit further into The House in the Cerulean Sea, I guess. So I've just opened my Too Good To Go bag, and I swear it wasn't this big last time I ordered it, but they've also given me a pot of gravy, which they didn't do last time. I don't know whether it's because I've ordered it on a Sunday, but they've also given me a little Yorkshire pudding in there. So I'm gonna heat this up, eat it, and then get back to some reading. So I am now around halfway through House in the Cerulean Sea, and this book isn't having as much as an emotional impact on me as I was expecting. I think because when this book came out, it was so popular, I heard a lot of reviews for it and I convinced myself that it was going to be a 5 stars. But because I've heard so many reviews for it, and I think because the way that this book is written is very on the nose and it's not subtle at all. Like, I knew going into this book exactly what the main messages were going to be and what the book is trying to get across. And I think that because of that, I'm a little bit bored because there's nothing that's surprised me so far, and I don't know if what I'm saying is even making any sense, but there's only one other book that I've read by TJ Klune, and that is Under the Whispering Door, and so far I much prefer Under the Whispering Door. I think I gave that 4 stars. I don't know whether it's because I liked the characters a lot more in that book and I liked the general themes more. I don't want to say this has been disappointing, but I'm not enjoying it as much as I was expecting to, so I'm reading it a lot slower than I thought I would. There's only about an hour left to go now with the readathon, so I'm hoping to read a little more of this tonight, and then I am going to wrap things up tomorrow because I don't like finishing a vlog when I'm halfway through a book. I would like to share my final rating for this. I think if I was to make a prediction now, I'd say it's somewhere between a 3 and a 4 stars, but maybe the ending is really, really good. I don't know, we will see. So I am here to wrap up this vlog because I finished reading House in the Cerulean Sea, and I can see why so many people like this book. I did enjoy it. I liked the second half a lot more than the first half, but I had quite a few issues, and I don't think it's really fair that I had those issues because the book was exactly what I was expecting it to be. I did think that it was oversimplified and I wanted more from it. It felt very surface level. This is very light fantasy, so the book is more about the characters and about their relationships, whereas I wanted to know more about the world. But that's not what the book is meant to be about. It's meant to be very character driven, so I don't know whether it's really fair for me to criticise it for that. There was a lot of controversy around this book not long after it came out, and I think that because I knew that and it was there in the back of my mind, when I started reading this book, I was reading it with a much more critical mindset than maybe I would have done if I didn't know anything about this book. Obviously, I can't say what I would have felt about this book if I'd read it with no knowledge of it. But yeah, I think because I knew about the controversy beforehand, that did affect how I viewed the book. Because I'm from the UK, I didn't really know a lot about the 60s scoop or about Canada's residential schools before all of the controversy came out. But as I was reading the book, I could see how it was paralleling certain things from the real world. And so it did feel a little bit uncomfortable at times. I don't know whether I'm making sense, but I think that there should be a line, but I think that that's a bigger discussion on what authors should or shouldn't be allowed to take inspiration from. I've just noticed my camera battery's dying, so I need to wrap things up. But yeah, like I said, it wasn't that I hated this book. I can see why so many people loved it, and I did like it. I think I'm probably going to give it like 3 stars. It just didn't quite work for me. Like I said though, that does bring me to the end of this video, so thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, let me know in the comments if you were taking part in Bookopoly and Bookoplathon, and what books you read. And yeah, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and click subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Bye.